People, today I have some wood fall DIY projects for you. We're going to be cutting some things, we're going to be building some things, and first up we're going to start with the things I purchased. These didn't require any building or, cutting of any kind. They're perfect just the way they are, and you can get them for $1.25 each at Dollar Tree. But we're going to push them to the side right now and take a gander at these little pieces I picked up from the store that shall not be named. I was in one of the stores and I had one of the employees approach me and tell me I was not allowed to film at their store. I wasn't allowed to film in there. And I was like, okay, unfortunately, no more Dollar General. And for anyone wondering, I even confirmed this with their PR department. Kind of sad, I know. But we're still going to use these little gems today. I mean, they're $1 and they're going to fit perfectly for what I want them for. You can pop these suckers on their side. You can put them right next to one another, or you can have them facing forward. These are also perfect to put little transfers on, paint, or do stencils, which we're going to be doing. And make sure anytime that you're working with glass, you clean off your pieces before you get to going. I just use a little bit of alcohol on these. We're going to make some cute little wall decor pieces by attaching these onto the wood pieces. You can use some E6000. I'm going to use these little adhesives I have laying around. This way I can reuse these pieces later on down the line. I know I'm cheap, but listen, I gotta keep making DIYs for you. So this is how I get creative. If you want them to stay attached forever, use some E6000, a little bit of Gorilla Glue gel, you'll be good to go. These adhesives that give me the freedom to switch it out as I need to. People, I think these are super cute just the way they are, but since it's fall theme, I'm gonna take the stencil and take this distressed texture paste that I love from Tim Holtz. We don't need a lot for this. I love this stuff. It is inexpensive, it is non-toxic, it is super easy to use, and once it dries and you seal it, it is good to go. And it's super easy to make different colors when you want to mix them up and transform it into something other than white. So I'm taking a little bit of the Admiral Blue here and just smooshing everything together and then simply pressing it right over top of our stencil. You don't need fancy schmancy tools for this. I just happen to have this laying around. But seriously, I love how simple this was to make and how high-end looking it turned out. On a recent trip to Dollar Tree, I found these little nesting boxes. That's what I'm calling them. I was like, I gotta pick these suckers up. I don't know what I'm gonna do with them, but look how cute this is. It's so tiny. It's smaller than my hand. I loved it. I was like, oh, it's so cute. But then I got to thinking, and I had a couple comments even suggest the same thing. We're gonna turn this into a tiered tray. I had this little square dowel hanging out from a trip to Hobby Lobby, and I'm like, this will work perfectly. I also had this little knob from Hobby Lobby laying around that I got on clearance for 99 cents. And then I'm like, we need some feet. So I just took some spackling, shoved it in the hole of these beads, and I let that dry. I did that off camera. I figured you guys, knew how to shove spackling in a hole. You know what I mean? I think you got that. I wanted this to be large, so I measured to size, creating a tiered effect. The smallest being the largest, and then, as it went up, it was a little bit shorter, like this, okay? Since they were stained black, I decided to just paint over them with some more black. Just, fresh coat of paint, never hurt nobody. Now it's time to work on our boxes. So we're going to take some water and a little bit of acrylic paints. I want to create like a grayish wash. So I'm mixing some brown and some gray together in this water to create a stain. This is going to allow us to not have a solid coverage over these wood pieces. So when it dries, you can still see the wood grain, which is a style that I just love. I love stain art. I love creating different variations of colors to blend in to wood. So this way you can see the natural aspects of the piece shine through. And to me, it just gives it a really high-end look, even if you just paid $1.25 for something. I wanted to seal these up just in case I wanted to set anything on here. And I'm going to use Dixie Belle's Easy Peasy Clear Matte Spray Wax. This stuff is eco-friendly, has a low odor. 30 minutes, it's ready to go, and you can start working with it. It's super easy to apply to things, and I really like the end finish. You can still feel the natural parts of the wood, but it gives a nice protection on your piece. Once it's all dry, you're ready to bring in the drill bit, okay? And you want to make sure that you bring in a drill bit that is big enough to house your dowel, if this is how you're choosing to go about it. I want this to be sturdy, so I'm going to drill a hole and I'm going to pop the dowel in there, but we need to find the center. And an easy way for us to do that is to take a ruler or anything with a straight line and set a catty corner, and then put a little line in the center, and right where they crisscross is where your center piece is. And that's what I did for each one of these boxes. If you want to just glue yours together, by all means, go right ahead. I want this to be super sturdy, so I know applying the dowel inside the center and drilling holes inside of the wood pieces that we're going to be using in the center is going to really give me a nice hole. And you don't need a lot, just a little bit. You see how I just nip the back off? That's all I'm doing. I measured to size, and then I'm drilling a hole right in the center of our little square dowels. I make sure I measured these so that way they all fit in here perfectly, and then you're ready to bring in the hot glue. Psych! We're ready to bring in the wood glue, because that's just going to hold all this together better. And on a side note, people, sometimes I go through my footage and I'm like, what was I thinking in this moment? Like, I'm sure some of you can imagine, but that's besides the point. Okay, just cleaning up some crusty wood bits. For the bottom piece, I'm not going to put a dowel in this. I'm going to use a tiny little screw, and then I'm going to add in some wood glue to the bottom of the wood piece. So this way, when we're drilling our little screw, it will catch onto the wood, and then that wood glue is just going to really tie everything in together for the long haul. And do you need me to remind you to be careful? Okay. Be very careful holding the dowel and trying to drill. All right. Safety first. One thing I like to share, if you don't know, is it's always good to grab those crusty bits you're collecting, because that's what I was doing, huh? I was grabbing all the crusty bits so we could use them to shove in our holes for our dowels. Okay. Yeah. I don't know what else you guys were thinking, but that's what we were doing with them. Let me stop messing with y'all. But on a serious note, adding some little wood chips or little wood bits, your sanded pieces, into holes whenever you're doing stuff like this, it's going to seal up anything that might have a gap and just blend in with that wood glue and your dowel. So once it's sealed, everything is tight in there. There is no air gaps, allowing for possible breakage. So people, you know, gather all your little sandy bits up whenever you're doing projects like this. You never know what you could possibly use them for. I'm gonna wrap this tacky glue around the base of our knob here before I go plopping it into the hole. One, it dries clear, so I know that if anything seeps out, it's not going to be tacky and noticeable. Two, if you guys ain't used tacky glue, you really need to get some. This stuff means business. So the tier tray is not fall theme colored. However, it is fall theme decorated, and I love that it's versatile and you can exchange it out for all the seasons and all the holidays. And it's pretty sturdy, people. I'm really proud of how well this thing is put together. We're going to turn these scrap wood pieces I cut up in different sizes into a set of pumpkins. For the stem, I cut these little square dowels up into different sizes. You could use these, you know, you can grab them from Dollar Tree, whatever, you know, put whatever stems you want. Since these are a set, we want them all to match, and I'm painting the backs of all of them black, and I'm using chalk paint and a little bit of water to just spread that out so it's not thick and chunky. Now it's time to bring in our napkin. Oh yeah, we are decoupaging these. Not all of them though, not the whole things, okay? I am not going to bore you. Instead, we're going to take this napkin and use it to incorporate all three of these into a set. If you've never decoupaged a napkin before, it's important to get all of them sneaky layers off the back. One of the easiest ways to do that is just to tear a corner, and it reveals the layers. Usually it's 2-ply. Sometimes if you're lucky, it's 1-ply. and then you pull it completely off. So this way, we're just going to decoupage the top layer. You're in for a treat today, people, because normally whenever I decoupage large pieces, I cut it up and do it in sections. For this one, we're going to do the sides, the front, and not the back, the top and the bottom. So we're going to also want to make sure, see this pretty blue? We're going to want to make sure that that is showing somewhere in each section that we put this napkin out. So we can mix up some colors to put on our little square that we have over here. This way, the front of that little square pumpkin piece that we're making matches the color that is on the napkin. I wanted these pieces to be a little rustic, so I wasn't worried about solid coverage, and I like wood grain showing through, you know what I'm saying? Now be mindful, people, because if you're doing this and flicking your paintbrush near something else that is solidly painted, oh no, sprinkly bits. Yeah, I was just painting careless and free, and the next thing I knew, I was like, there's little blue dots on my black paint. So I said I didn't want these painted, you know, wasn't worried about full coverage. I also took a paper towel and wiped back any excess paint. I did the same thing with this rosy pinkish mauve color, I guess you would call it, and wiped it back as well. This just revealed a little bit of those, you know, wood grains underneath. And then I wanted to add a little bit of distressing with some dark colors, just to really tie in all the colors that are in that napkin, to really bring our little set here together. For our application, we're going to be using Deco Art Decoupage with the mat and a fan brush. I found the center of the napkin that had a little speck of blue on it and went from there. Because I'm going to be wrapping the napkin around our brick, that's what it looks like to me right now, brick. I found the center of the napkin that I wanted with the blues, so this way that's going to pop and incorporate our little blue block here right on the front. And then I took my little sponge. If you guys are not familiar with me, I like to use little cut pieces of dry sponge to press down on the outside of napkins. When I decoupage them, it will grab excess Mod Podge that seeps through and help prevent additional wrinkling and things like that. I also like to go with a less is more kind of style and do section by section. You, on a project like this, if you want to do the iron-on method, that would work amazingly. That is definitely going to give you the most flawless coverage. But again, I was going for a little bit of a rustic look here, so if there was some wrinkles, lumps, and bumps, I wasn't going to be mad about it. I do recommend you cutting your corners just a little bit, like how I'm doing here, and popping them out, and then just measuring, just like you would if, you know, you're kind of wrapping a present. Measure your corners and stuff like that. Make sure that it makes sense. So this way, as you're wrapping your napkin, you're pressing each side down that it's going to cover. You know what I mean? If you just go ahead and try to actually wrap the napkin all the way around, it's going to overlap. And I did not want that. And trust me, when you see the end result, this came out flawless. The seams all met up really nice, because you're also going to sand off any excess. And here's our little brick completely decoupage. So this is the only one that we're going to do the front and the sides and the top and the bottom. The back, again, remember, it's completely black. Now for our little pink one, we're just going around the outside with our napkin. We're going to do the top and on the sides. And remember, I'm trying to make sure I'm incorporating that blue, so this way it ties in together. So I am making sure that I am placing it in just the right particular spot. Oh, on a side note, for anybody that wants to decoupage raw wood, I want to let you know a huge tip. The edges where you cut are usually very porous, so you're going to need extra Mod Podge in those spots. Keep that in mind. Once these dried, I went ahead and sanded all the excess off, and I added some of that little wood grain popping through. If you want to paint around the edges of yours white so your napkin pops out more, you go right ahead, but I really wanted this napkin to look like it was blended into the wood grain, and this turned out perfect for me. It just looks like it's melted into the wood. I wanted to get a little artsy fartsy with the leaves. Okay, so I grabbed me a page out of a little Dollar Tree book, and I cut out some little almond shaped leaf pieces. Then I cut little divots inside of the little leaves, so this way it gave it more of an authentic look to look like a leaf. And I thought that would just add to our rustic appeal. And I crinkled it up a little bit too. I was, you know, getting a little rough with our leaf here, you know, trying to just give it some character. And because I'm me, I'm like, let's add some Waverly Antique Wax, you know, to the edge. And then I was like, oh, too much. And it just was too much. Ow! I ripped my leaf. Of course I did. Of course I did. I decided to move on to our stems and also applied some Antique Waverly Wax to them while I had it out. And while they were drying, I brought in a stencil for us to apply a little raised stencil on the top with our wonderful Tim Holtz texture paste, okay? And it's always a good idea, if it is big enough, to tape your stencils down whenever you're doing a texture paste, because you really don't want anything smooshing underneath of that stencil. And I love this stuff as well because you do not have to do like a seamless coverage. It will have all kinds of textures and different looks and variations throughout it. I also gave our little blue pumpkin some love, and then I attached our stems and our little leaves using some hot glue and some tacky glue. To make sure these look really seamless, I did add a little bit of twine right around where the stem attached to our pumpkins. And in this reveal, they are sealed. I get asked that often, what do I seal over my projects with? A lot of times, if it is a craft like this, and I know it's not going to be in a heavily used area, I will happily take the very medium that I attached the napkin with and use that as my sealer. And I did the very same thing here. I just waited until the next day, so this way the napkin was completely dry and adhered to our wood pieces. These are absolutely my favorite pieces I've made so far this fall season. As always, thank y'all so much for hanging out with me today, and until next time.